Of all the records you can break, the most liked picture on Instagram is probably one of the hardest. With billions of users around the world, the competition for attention and likes is fierce. So, can you guess what is the most liked post ever by a sports team? It's not France winning the World Cup. It's not the Lakers winning the NBA. And it's also not Red Bull winning Formula One. The most liked sports team post ever on Instagram is Cristiano Ronaldo returning to Manchester United. A post about a football transfer. And this is not a one-time thing. The second most liked post by a sports team is Messi joining PSG. The players' personal posts about their new clubs get even more likes. Football fans are crazy about transfer news nowadays. Players moving clubs create even more hype than players winning championships. But it wasn't always like that. Transfer news is a relatively new category of sports journalism. So how can we find out more about it? When you Google transfer journalist, it suggests this guy. So let's just ask him.
Hi guys, this is Fabrizio Romano. Welcome to Athletic Interest, and here we go.
For this Athletic Interest case study, we invited the man himself, Fabrizio Romano, to help us explain how football and the media have changed and how that created a whole new category of sports coverage. Fabrizio was just 18 when he broke his first bit of transfer news. After spending 6 months writing for a small website in his native Italy, an agent called him from Barcelona with some inside information. The agent asked him to write a story about 2 young players that he was trying to sign. One of them was Mauro Icardi. Fabrizio still doesn't know how the agent got his number, but he agreed. And a couple of weeks later, he was the first to announce that Icardi would join Sampdoria. That's how he got started and fell in love with being a transfer journalist. For him, the transfer market is a jungle where you expect the unexpected every day.
Things change, is part of life, and I think it's also why transfer market is beautiful. Leo Messi was in Barcelona to sign his new contract with Barcelona, and 12 hours later he was talking with Paris Saint-Germain and left Barcelona. But I think people love it because it's crazy.
For Fabrizio, transfer journalism is like playing football, and breaking the biggest news is like scoring a goal. More than 10 years have gone by since he broke the Icardi story, and Fabrizio has become the go-to guy for all important transfer news. If you want to know what's going on in the market, simply check his Twitter feed, where he is providing updates to his nearly 6 million followers. Yes, you heard that right. He has more followers than ESPN Football. And this is a full-grown media company, not one single journalist. The biggest transfers are no longer announced first by TV stations or newspapers, but by Fabrizio Romano. How is it possible that one single journalist became the go-to person for transfer news, attracting more readers on Twitter than traditional newspapers and more viewers on Twitch than TV companies? There are 2 developments that we need to understand: how the media has changed and how football has changed.
World is changing. And so I think sometimes this kind of social media are helping to be faster. People are not waiting for an update, maybe for the TV show on night, or maybe for the paper on morning to have the update. They want to update immediately. I think this is the process: to be fast, to show your face, and to be reliable. I think this is the real revolution.
Thanks to Facebook, Twitter, and so on, the media industry has become faster, clickier, and more personal than ever. Social media, especially Twitter, has given journalists the chance to build a public profile that would have been impossible to build 20 years ago. Now they can interact with readers, share unfiltered thoughts, and amass a following that can travel with them from one job to the next. Thanks to the ability to publish news online at any time of day, the old practice of submitting a story for the morning's newspaper is dead. When news breaks, journalists are expected to cover it immediately. The downside is that moving fast means people are more likely to make mistakes. The race to be first is real, and moving fast doesn't always correlate with getting things right. And that's where Fabrizio is different. His approach is simple: be accurate rather than be first to the news. Fabrizio Romano basically combined the reliability of traditional journalism with the agility of blogs and social media. Overall, social media has done a quick job of changing the centuries-old profession of journalism. But it is not only the media that has changed.
I think in the last 6-7 years where the transfers completely changed. Now people are waiting for transfer news more than team news to know what is the lineup of their team. They prefer to know who they're signing than maybe watching a football game.
Since the Bosman ruling in 1995, the transfer market in football exploded. In '96, the most expensive player ever was Ronaldo, who moved to Barcelona for converted 15 million euros. 5 years later, Zinedine Zidane moved to Real for almost 80 million euros, and we all know what happened in 2017. As the transfer sums grew, the public interest and coverage of these transfers did as well. Fans created countless blogs, subreddits, and boards to discuss the latest rumors around their club. A prime example for this is transfermarket.com, which was founded in 2000 and quickly became the largest database for transfer information and player values. Today, it even functions as a reference for agents and club executives. In 2008, the website was acquired by German media tycoon Axel Springer, the largest publishing company in Europe. One reason for the rise of transfer news and the interest by major media companies is that most of it is happening in the off-season, while not much else is happening in football. Experts found that 95% of fans want to interact with their favorite leagues and teams throughout the year. Transfer reporting fills that gap with timely tweets, player interviews, and other content. It also means that clubs focus more on presenting transfers than ever before. It is no longer enough to just do a simple press release. The clubs now hire agencies to prepare full-blown media campaigns, which in turn helps out journalists like Fabrizio Romano.
10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when you had a negotiation in transfer world, it was club by club or club by agent, so it was maybe 2, 3, 4 people involved in a negotiation. Club directors, player, his agent, and that's it. Now there are many and many people involved in a negotiation, because when you talk about agency, they have like the main agent, and then there are people working for him, and then people working on social media for the agency, and then people involved in the deal as intermediary. So you have like 20 people knowing about the deal, people into the club, people close to the player, people close to the agent. So it's a crazy process, but I love it.
A changing media and a changing sports landscape. These two developments created a niche for a completely new category of sports coverage. And Fabrizio Romano pioneered that category. We live in the first era of history in which people are this fascinated with money, how it moves and what it accomplishes. It's almost as if the new star of sport, next to the likes of Federer and Messi, is this money and how it flows. There is a whole new world to cover off the pitch. The stories behind the athletes and teams. The stories of how sports function as a business and reflect our culture. The stories of athletic interest.